All right, so welcome everybody. First of all, Mazal Tov on the Chatan and the Kala. We're going to do the topic of resurrection. I guess it's good technically for Chatan and Kala. You want to know how long you'll be together, no? Maybe we should speak about how long you're going to be together in the next world. You know, they say a joke about the old, there's a rabbi who was giving a speech in the old age home. And in the old age home, he was like, he was telling the people, he says, and whoever you are in this world, you're going to be together with them in the next world. And then you hear like an old man in the, in the back go, "Ugh! You gotta be kidding me." He says, "I thought I would get rid of her finally." He's nagging me nonstop. So we'll see also, if you do get, this is why it's an interesting topic also, I guess, on today, is that you'll see, not because of Halloween, but because of the Chatan and Kala, that if you go and you marry somebody, let's say you get resurrected, do you stay married to that person? Do you have to do Kiddushim again? How does that work? There's also...
Come back,
we're going to speak about all that. So what are we going to speak about? We're speaking about, first of all, who gets resurrected? Does everybody get resurrected? When does resurrection occur? What's the order of the resurrection? Is it going to be roll call? How is exactly it's going to go? Where do we see proof from the Torah that there is a resurrection? Which body? Let's say you've been back, you've came in a reincarnation multiple times. So which body will get resurrected? Also an interesting question, what about if a woman is pregnant and she miscarries? Does that baby get resurrected? That baby was never born, does that baby have ability to get resurrected? And also we'll speak about what is the purpose of resurrection. Another something that hopefully we'll get into, something very interesting, is genetic cloning. Can we do resurrection through something that's more scientific? So let's begin in Mizat Hashem. We'll be able to uncover, and then hopefully we'll get a little bonus for the Chatan and Kala, being that they heard so much about the marriage stuff. So we'll give them, as they said, we'll give them a little bit about resurrection, and then hopefully maybe afterwards we'll tell them something which they for sure have not heard on Chatan and Kala. We'll see how positive that will come out. Okay, so first and foremost, the ability, resurrection, it's not like, oh, it's a Kabbalistic concept, but it's a part of the 13 principles of faith. In fact, the 13th of the 13 principles of faith is you have to believe that there is going to be a resurrection. It's not something that's far-fetched, it will happen. And that is it's a fundamental of Judaism. So, resurrection, it's not something like, I can't even imagine it. Like, what is it going to be? Is it going to be like a zombie apocalypse, minus the eating the brains part? Like, what is the resurrection that it's in a sense? We don't know for the, the full aspect of it. Like, in my mind, which is always very, very imaginative, and my imagination goes like crazy. Like, what I see is like literally the scene of like, graveyard, and like a hand comes out, then like, and the guy walks out of the grave, and then you see like a horde of like hundreds of thousands of people like just walking out of the graveyard. But that B'ezrat Hashem, we'll see when it actually comes. Well, let us understand the basic concepts of it. So first of all, how it will be in the time frame. Number one, the sequence of it working out is, first of all, the Bet HaMikdash will be rebuilt. Then there will be an ingathering of exiles. So all the people all over the world will come to Eretz Yisrael, to Israel. And 40 years later will be the resurrection of the dead. Now, there's going to be, it's not one resurrection. This is where people are usually unclear. There's going to be two resurrections. The first one will be in the beginning of the days of Mashiach. And this is when all the righteous people will get resurrected. And then 40 years later will be where everybody else, the regular general population, will get resurrected. So who could get, if you want to jump to the front of the line, if you want to be resurrected first, and you do, it's not something to be like, no, it's okay, I'll take the second train out. You want to be the first, you want to be of the first ones there. So, number one is for some people that they learn Torah, and for example for women that they help their husbands learn Torah, and we'll explain this more about it in depth. Additionally, people that long to see Yerushalayim rebuilt. There's some people that they have this desire to see Jerusalem get rebuilt again to its previous glory. You look now in Israel, it looks beautiful, but it's not in the glory that it was, especially in the spiritual aspect of things. So the first people to be resurrected will be the people that live in Israel. Afterwards will be the dead of the other land. And after that will be the patriarch, the Avot. The Avot, the Abraham, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they'll be resurrected at the end. Think of it as you coming to a reunion, a family reunion, let's say. So it's much nicer, thank you, Savi. It's much nicer if you have, like the grandparents there, the patriarchs and the matriarchs of the family, they come in at the end, they see the entire family there, everybody's wealthy, all the righteous people, so the same idea, the Avot will come at the end. So, what about those that are alive in the time of the resurrection? So there are people that passed away, so they'll get resurrected. But those that are alive at the time of the resurrection, the Zohar says that they will die momentarily and then they will come back to life again. Why? Because the pasuk in Genesis, in Bereshit chapter 3 verse 19, it says, Ki afar ata vel afar tashuv. From dust you came, from dust you're going to return. So as a fulfillment of the verse, they will die and then they will come back to life. However, there is a way to avoid even the death at the end, and that is if somebody becomes humble. When somebody's humble, they are like dust, and if they are like dust, they're already humble, they already have the fulfillment of the pasuk, ki afar ata, you already are like dust, and hence they won't have to go and die again and have to be resurrected as well. But there's also another important aspect of it. We know that there's 4 basic elements of the world. There's fire, air, water, and dirt? Earth? I don't know. Did I say something twice? I don't know. Fire, air, water. Yeah. So when a righteous person does a mitzvah, or anybody does mitzvah, you elevate sparks. So you're able to do all these different parts of the elevation, but when a righteous person dies and gets resurrected, so it also gets the ground part, uplifting the sparks that were the nitzotzot that were left in there. Okay. So where do we see proof of resurrection from the Torah? This is not something, we know that everything has a source in the Torah. Let me rephrase that, because not everything that's Torah concept, the truth is everything has source in the Torah. But particularly things that we say from the Torah all have source in the actual Torah. So we see in the Torah in Deuteronomy, chapter 32, verse 39. It says, Ani emit ve'achayeh. I cause death and grant life. This is God talking. In Isaiah chapter 26 verse 19, it says, may your dead live and my corpse shall rise. Again, a reference to resurrection. Book of Daniel, chapter 12 verse 2. V'rabim mishnei admat afar yakitzu. And the many who sleep in the dust of the earth will awaken. Again, another mention of resurrection from the Torah. And also we have another one in Exodus chapter 15 verse 1. Az yashir Moshe. This is what we pray every single day. Az yashir Moshe. Then Moses will sing. What's then? Then means into the future. Because now he's saying a song, but Az Yashir Moshe, in the days of the resurrection, in the days of Mashiach, Moshe is going to also sing, and this is also in reference to the Torah. And of course, we can't, have to have an honorable mention to Ezekiel, chapter 37. This is the valley of the dry bones, when they got resurrected from the ground. So it wasn't, we'll speak about it also, the concept of this, how did it work, but think of it that there was a resurrection at one point in time. Now we'll see if it was figuratively or it was actually literal. So, to think about it, that people come back to death should not be something that's far-fetched. We have something called, nowadays it's scientifically, again, it's not really scientifically proven because I don't know how much you can prove it scientifically, but it is, documented case to case again. It's called the NDE. NDE is near-death experiences. Now you guys should be familiar. I've been mentioning this before, where somebody is clinically dead and they come back to life. I spoke to a few people that had this experience. And when you could say that it's one person, okay, so maybe, he did a little bit too much shrooms or whatever it is, and he ended up, thinking that he died. And, you see like these people that, I spoke to people once who've done, there's something, I don't want to give ideas, but I guess it tells you the people that I deal with. There's some sort of legal drug. I've said this story before. I think it's hilarious. Every time I think about the story, I can't hold myself back and laughing. It's a legal synthetic type of drug that makes you hallucinate. It lasts for 15 minutes, and I don't know. I don't want to give any ideas anyways. You should not do it. But I had 2 students of mine years ago that they took it. And it's just, so one of them was very into sports. So he said that the entire time that he was on this, I guess we'll call it the shrooms, he had 2 voices in his head, like announcers at a game that were announcing everything that was going on. All right, and that's how he was just walking around, and there were announcers so it was like he was watching a game, but it was in his own life. And there was another one who also did it, who I can't do it now, but if I would stand up, he could not. Well, I'll do it. This is how he could not walk. Right? That's all he was able to walk. Like he could not, and for 15 minutes he was like that. He couldn't get up straight. So we're all in New York, so we actually see these people all the time, especially if you take the subway. So but it's interesting. It's not talking about somebody who okay, so he took some of those things and he thought he died, and then he went up to heaven and he spoke to God, and then he spoke to a few other people, and then he came back down again, and he's the Messiah, and now you got to follow him. I'm not talking about someone like that. I'm talking about somebody who actually was clinically dead, which means is that in the hospital he had no heartbeat. What clinically dead is no heartbeat, no brain waves, nothing. Sheet over the head. Toe, ribbon on his toe. I don't know what do you call those things. They were clinically dead for X amount of time, and then they came back to life, and then, this is not a class about near-death experience, but just so you have understanding, they were able to explain everything that was going around them. They were able to say, there are cases that were documented that patients that were clinically dead in the hospital, they died on the operating table, and the patient somehow came back to life at a later given point in time, and they were able to exactly say what the nurse was doing, what the doctor was doing, where they were going, what they were wearing, what they were running, exactly what they were saying. And the doctors have no explanation for this. How is it possible if you were dead? If you want to say you heard it subconsciously when you were under anesthesia, whatever, very unlikely, but still fine. But you were clinically dead. How did you know everything that was going on? So we see over here there are cases that are documented that people died and came back to life. So this is understandable. This we can understand because it happened nowadays. But to understand somebody that not only died, but is in the ground, and could be nothing left of them, or very little left of them, the bones or whatever is left of them, and they could come back to life, that's mind-boggling. It's crazy. So who gets resurrected? The Gemara cites 3 opinions. Number 1 is everybody. Let's hope that this is the opinion that we go with, and let's hope that everybody gets resurrected. Number 2 are only those people that are buried in Eretz Yisrael. Only the people that are buried in Israel. And everybody else who gets resurrected has to actually roll through the ground. I don't know if it's somersault, but I'm saying go through the ground to Israel and then get resurrected in Israel. We'll speak about the subterranean tunnels B'ezrat Hashem also. And thirdly, anybody who uses the light of Torah. Torah, we're going to soon see tonight, has a very, 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 very strong implication and attraction. It's closely related to resurrection. There are there are people. We'll start it like this. The Chavetz Chaim and the Bet HaLevi say that if you have mitzvot and good deeds, these are not going to help you with resurrection. Resurrection can only be helped through the light of the Torah. You know, you have people, I hear this all the time, and it's just like, it bothers me, the amount of time I hear it. I'm a good person, Rabbi. No, I'm a good person, I do good, and okay, fine, I don't keep Shabbat, I don't keep kosher, but what, am I a sinner? Am I a bad person? I'm a good person. I'm like, who is judging? Is it subjective, objective? Like, who are you to decide that you're a good person? Like, by what criteria? By the government's criteria, are you a good person? So you pay taxes? Very nice. So you have Social Security when you get older and you won't get thrown in jail. But if you want to consider yourself a good person, then you have to you want to consider yourself a good person to God, then you have to look at what God says will require you to be a good person. Good person doesn't just mean to do good. There's actually, you have to keep Shabbat. You have to keep kosher. You have to be modest. You have to do a certain amount of things. And these people, the reason why it bothers me, I'm like, you don't even know about God. You don't even study about God. You know nothing about the Torah, and you claim to yourself to be a good person. That is such an idiotic statement that makes absolutely no sense. I'll give you another example. Imagine a guy goes to a doctor, and the doctor says, in order for you to be better, you need to take this very, very bitter medication. And the guy says, with all due respect, doctor, I definitely hear you about this medication, but it's really bitter. I don't like it. I'm going to take something else. The doctor says, with all due respect to you, that's not going to do anything for you. And he says, listen, I'm taking medicine. Stop getting on my back. What's the difference what medicine I'm taking? It's going to make me better. That's exactly what it's like. So this guy is taking medicine that has nothing to do with what's going to help him, and he thinks it's going to make him heal. The same way, someone who will consider himself a good person doesn't follow the Torah. That you want to know what's a good person, you have to follow the Torah. The Torah will tell you what is to be a good person and what is not. There's also Rabbi Yitzchak there says that also somebody who dies and sanctifies God's name. So through death he sanctifies God's name. And this, even if he doesn't have the light of Torah, he would still get resurrected. So it's like dying al Kiddush Hashem. Now, this is something else that bothers me. A lot of things that bother me today. It's been a tough week. All right, so you have people that pass away unfortunately at a very young age, and I've been to unfortunately too many funerals. I don't want to go anymore. Please, no more, please. So I'm talking about young guys, young people's funeral. And what do I hear generally? God takes his best. He took his soldiers to be with him at the end. I'm like, this guy is a mechalel Shabbat. I'm pretty sure he was a drug dealer too. I'm pretty sure that he done X amount of things. His best soldiers, I'm like, if you think this guy is God's best soldiers, then God does not have a good army. I mean, no, it's for sure not. Where do you get that? People, it's consolation. Which, of course, we're not to judge anybody, especially people that pass away. Like, there are people that got, let's say, there's one guy in particular, right? He got shot. He got, in the very, very, not a great situation. And pretty sure it was a drug deal gone bad. That's what I'm pretty sure what it got you. And people go and talk up to him as this guy is the tzaddik adol adol. I'm like, you got to be realistic. We have to be realistic. Dying al Kiddush Hashem doesn't just mean that you're dying and you're a Jew. It means that that you're dying and you sanctify God's name as you died. Chaim Kanievsky says that this is something very, very important, because I think people don't take this thing serious enough. Everybody here familiar with something called Melave Malka? Melave Malka is you have 3 meals on Shabbat, right? You have 3 meals on Shabbat. There's also a 4th meal. This is not like a bonus meal, like, hey, like you ate so much on Shabbat, you know what, just tack on another thing. It's not going to hurt you another 3 pounds, whatever. Go eat at midnight in the summer. It's going to be good for you. It's not like a bonus thing. You were supposed to and you were required to eat Melave Malka. Melave Malka is a 4th meal that it's after Shabbat ends, you eat another meal, sort of like sending away the Shabbat queen. The Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky says that even if one learns Torah and one dies for the sake of heaven, he dies like Kiddush Hashem, but if he doesn't eat Melave Malka, he's not going to get resurrected. Why? What's so special about Melave Malka? There's a special bone in the body. The bone in the body is called the Loews bone. The Loews bone is the bone where you get resurrected from. Again, my imagination. My imagination thinks of it like this. So, like you have like, I don't know how they do it now, but I remember when I was a kid, so you have like Transformers or like, like different things like that. Like, like they just do something and then like pieces fly. I might not be Transformers, I don't know. It's talking about years back. Bochum, I don't remember it anymore. But you have like metal pieces flying from all directions and they sort of like ting 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 ting. It's like, like, or maybe it's Power Rangers, I don't know. Like, and they come back together and they all, morph into like one big, thing. That's not how it's going to work in the time of Tchiat HaMetim. There's going to be one bone. There's one bone we're soon going to discuss where it may be, and from that one bone, everything gets reconstructed. The entire body gets reconstructed. Where does this bone get nourished from? It gets nourished from the food that you eat after Shabbat for Melave Malka. And in fact, when you eat Melave Malka, you should say, I'm eating for Melave Malka. I'm eating it. You can have pizza, you can have whatever,
You have to wash for it?
It's better to wash, but if you can, at least have a mizonot.
That's why Abdullah, we do
Oh, you people put it in the back over here?
yeah.
Really? That's very interesting. Because there's another opinion where the bone is. People don't put wine there. It's called the coccyx bone. Coccyx bone is the bottom of the spine. The bottom of the spine. Tailbone. So you could see people go like this, maybe, I don't know. But the point is not to massage it with liquid from the kiddush, but rather to eat Melave Malka for it. So to understand a little bit further, you have so our service of God is rewarded in 2 ways. Number one is after a soul dies, the soul goes, hopefully to heaven, and heaven is called Gan Eden. That's what heaven is called. So that is one. Number two, which is the ultimate reward, is going to be in Olam Haba, the world to come, where it will descend once again to the soul, will descend once again into the body, and then it will live together in harmony, in a utopian type of a scenario. So now, let's speak about it like this. Not all bodies get resurrected. There are some people that don't get resurrected. So first of all, we know the Rambam in Hilchot Shuvah, 3rd parak of Hilchot Shuvah, says that there is 13 categories, 24. There's a certain amount of category of people that do not have a share in the world to come. So you have people, for example, that don't believe in God. People that don't believe in the prophecy of Moshe, do not believe in the Torah. People that Mosel, they give over Jews to the government. You have people that sin in public. People that help other people sin. That they make the Machtit Arabim. They make other people sin with them. People that rebel. People that say that God is numerous. There's more than one God. There's 3 gods. Whatever. The different ideas in it. So those people have no share in the world to come. Those people, however, if they do tshuva, they are still able to get resurrected as well. There's also in the time of Yecheskel, the resurrection of the dry bones. There were like everybody got resurrected except for like one. There was like one bone that didn't get resurrected. So Yecheskel asked, "What's with this one bone? Why is this not getting resurrected?" So they said that this person lent money to Jews on interest, and that is also someone who lends money to Jews on interest also doesn't get up in the resurrection. But of course, this is assuming that they didn't do tshuva. If one does tshuva, he could do tshuva on anything. What about a divorce? Here's something very interesting. So a woman gets divorced. A husband and a wife go and they get divorced, and then she goes and she marries a second husband. Who does she stay married to after the Tchiat HaMetim? The first, you say? First is the best, uno. So the answer is actually the second. The second is the one that you say is the second husband. Let me ask you a similar question. What about a widow? A widow that she's widowed, and she goes and she marries a second husband, who does she go? So this is actually a machloket. So some people say first, and some people say it stays in the second. Some people say the reason why, because widow is similar to divorce. Other people say that, no, it's not considered, it's not the same idea, and hence she goes back to the first. And in fact, it's very unfortunate, because if you speak to people that are widowed, and they get married again, generally what they feel, and this is not always, but they feel, like hopefully they won't say in front of their spouse, but they're like, there's nothing like the first one. I've spoken to somebody who was a widow, and they mentioned also, like they married the second time. Now I don't know how, I'm not saying that they're unhappily married, but there's something missing that's not like the first husband, the first spouse. Okay, so now let's speak about people that get reincarnated, right? So you have, let's say, your particular body, your particular soul came down to this world 5 times. Who gets reincarnated? Do all you come together? Let's say you're 10 times. You have a minyan with yourself, like, be like, all right, all of me, let's go. We're gonna go pray, together. We're gonna do. Like, how does that work? Is it just the last one? Is it the best one? Is it the worst one? Is it the first one? So the Arizal explains. First of all, we have to understand what's the point of reincarnation. So we know reincarnation, it's not generally, and this is generally, you could always look back to, we gave the 3 classes on reincarnation. It's not a bonus. It's not like, you did such a good job over here. Why don't you go back again? Just go play again. When you finish a game, right? Let's say you waste your life playing video games. I don't know what they're up to. PlayStation 4, 5, 6, 7, 4? They're up to only 4? In my day and age, you're up to 1.
But it's PlayStation Pro, like that.
Oh, it's like PlayStation, like 360, 720.
The military already has a power PlayStation 7.
Yeah, it's right.
They have the Slim, the Pro.
They went ahead.
It's like
These things don't come out every year? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to take an offense. What? Every 10 years they take out another...
Every GTA comes out with a new one.
Yeah,
what do you mean no?
Alien, I don't know what that... Oh, computer Alienware. Okay, whatever it is. Say somebody is going and they're wasting life in the games. Why do I say waste your life? Any gamer could testify to it. You're not going to be like, all right, let me do like a quick game, like 30 minutes. No. It's like you come out and be like, what day is it? It's like, oh, the sun, right? You have like 7 bottles of Sunkiss near you. You have another bottle that looks like apple juice, but it's probably not. And you're like, you're coming out over there, you haven't shaved in like weeks. You've been like, and you're like coming out of the cave over here, like out of back to humanity. You've been living off chips and soda for the past like 4 days. So you stay over there, you waste, a significant amount of time. But imagine you spend a long time. You spend, I don't know what's a hard game. I would say Mario, but I'm very dated. I know there's other things. What is the shooting game called?
Rainbow Six Siege, Call of Duty.
Call of Duty. That's a popular one. So let's say, I don't know how Call of Duty works, but let's say you go and you pass. You could finish the whole game, right? You can't finish the whole game? Okay.
Multiplayer. What do you mean no?
Oh, multiplayer. Okay. I don't know how it works anymore. Back in my day, there were levels, and you pass the levels, and like Mario. But once you save the princess, that's it. You can't go save another princess. Be like, oh, I don't like you anymore. I'm gonna go save another princess. The sages. Let's say it's a game that's linear. You finish the game. It's Gamalnu. It's finished. Shalom al Yisrael. You can come back to real reality. Let's say it's one of those games. You finish the entire game. How many people would be like, let me start again from the beginning? There are a few people. But generally, you're like, okay, time to move on to bigger and better things like Call of Duty 2 or 3 or 4, right? Like, important things in life. So you don't usually do it again. Why do you do it again when you can't pass it? So you keep on trying again when you can't pass it. The similar idea with reincarnation. I'm not saying there are righteous people that did an excellent job in the previous life. They're coming back to help other people, so that's possible. But generally, we messed up. We got to come back again in this world. What to fix? Because we didn't pass the level. Think of it, we didn't pass the level, so we have to go again and we have to pass the level. We didn't get enough power-ups. Maybe we didn't collect enough coins. Whatever it is, we ran out of fuel. We didn't pass it up. Sometimes we go backwards. You ever know you go driving and it's like wrong way. Like some people, that's how they live their life. It's entire ways. They're like wrong way. Instead of getting better, they make their life worse than they were in the previous reincarnation. But in any case, the point of reincarnation is to fix things that you messed up. Specifically, there are 613 mitzvot, and everybody has to accomplish 613 mitzvot to complete your soul. So what happens is, if let's say a certain body got like 20% done. Another body got 30% done. Another body got 40% done. You have 3 bodies over here. And so you have all the bodies that equal up 100%. So they all contributed to this completing of the soul. So they all come back together. They all get resurrected, and all of them are resurrected together.
And they're all like different beings?
Mm-hmm.
But each one
they have sparks. So that's interesting, because the interesting question is, and I'm not sure about this, is that how would it work? Do you remember everything in the previous reincarnation right away in the beginning of resurrection? Possibly yes. I don't know. In the next world, yeah. But over here, it's interesting idea. So it's very interesting. So the spouses that come back will come back also with the same, but it's also the woman has to fix things. So it's like
each life they find each other.
Yeah, technically that's how it should be. If you marry the right one, which generally it is. The reason why there's so many divorces nowadays is not because people marry the wrong one, is rather because people did not, work it through the way it's supposed to. Granted, there are reasons for divorce, and there are people that are supposed to get divorced. But yeah, so you meet the same one, you meet the one, and you build it on enough together. There is an idea that I did hear a while ago, and I couldn't find the source for it. Oh, maybe I don't remember. There's like so much things that are floating in my head. But don't say that to a psychiatrist, right? So that it says, like, let's say you are married numerous times, so which spouse do you come back with? I did see the one that helps you, accomplish the most. I did see that idea. Same idea with the body, the one that accomplished the most. But generally, you could all, we're going to go with the opinion that everybody comes back to B'ezrat Hashem, hopefully that is the plan.
But how does one neshama divide equally amongst 10 bodies?
It sparks. It's nitzotzot. So that when a soul does a certain, so if you look at the Shal Gilgulim, the Arizals, yeah, you think of it. Well, that nothing gets detracted of it. But think of it a little bit differently. That you have levels. Here's a perfect example. Gaming, right? We're speaking about gaming. So in a certain games, if you pass a certain point, even if you die, you start again from that point.
Yeah.
Everything else is saved. Unless, right, so checkpoint. So you have that checkpoint. So think of it like this. So if you pass a certain point, whatever you got accomplished, that is already a checkpoint for you. It stays in the next world. That part of the soul is completed. That as you continue with checkpoints, you keep on putting it in, and whichever soul, one soul had 10 checkpoints, another soul had 20 checkpoints. So and they will stay in that manner. The Ababanel says that no, it says something very interesting. Only the first body gets reincarnated. Only the first body gets reincarnated. So but the idea is that as long as people do not do sins, so let's say you are in multiple lifetimes, but one lifetime you did a sin that does not allow you to be reincarnated again. You violated one of the sins that doesn't allow you to be, not reincarnated, to be resurrected. So that body will not be able to, but the previous bodies will be able to. This is not to say that, okay, I for sure had a pretty, good body, in the previous lifetime, so I could do whatever I want now. That's the most idiotic thing to say, but it's possible that not all the bodies will come back. If anybody wants, you can look into the Shal Gugulim for more information on this. So, now let's speak a little bit about, let's say a woman miscarries. This question was actually brought to Rabbi Moshe Feinstein. It was brought to Moshe Feinstein. Let's say a woman goes and she's pregnant, and however long she was, with the baby, she lost a child. Does that child get to be brought back? So, Rabbi Moshe Feinstein actually says in Sanhedrin, brings this case in Sanhedrin, this is a straight out Gemara, in Sanhedrin page 110b, that says like this. Ravina asked, he says, how old does a child have to be in order to be allowed to go in Olam Haba, in the world to come? And the answer is that as soon as it was conceived. From conception. The moment that it was conception. So the Rashi explains over there that even if the mother miscarries, the embryo is lost, which means the child still has a share in the world to come. It's unbelievable. And there's also a lot of consolation for people that didn't have what they accomplished. But at the same point in time, they're very pure. They're holy. They're not nothing. They're very clean.
When that happens, is something that some sort of a cocoon that the soul makes.
Yeah, of course, 100%.
What kind of cocoon can you make?
For what kind of tikkun can you make of a? It's sometimes a soul just needs to have a little bit extra to have a, they're such on a high level, they just need a little bit and then they're clean. Sometimes they just have to be brought into the world again, just to be taken out again. Sometimes they have to be brought into the world, nursed, and then, unfortunately pass. We don't know God's...
If you don't mind me asking. I heard a story, something similar. This person was a convert.
Yeah.
And then they died.
Yeah,
because the only reason for them to go to the world above is they had to be born a Jew.
Right. That's exactly. That's also it's exactly right. Okay. There's an interesting. Yeah. So that's a very good question because it's not the baby's fault. But it would appear that also the baby would do that. I mean, the parents will be liable for murder because abortion is not allowed under the Torah. So the parents are considered to be as murderers, and it's interesting because one of the things that lose your share in the world to come is also a murderer. So it's interesting that fetus might be able to make it, but the parents might not to the resurrection.
Murdered, so, I'm guessing it's a regular thing. Like if anybody gets killed,
Yeah. I mean, so I assume if the baby was conceived. the second the baby was conceived, and this question you can make it a lot more difficult. I don't want to get into it because there's something called Plan B where you could take a certain after a certain point in time. However, you could still say we'll just go in the simple idea and that once it's conceived, so it's already formed, and then it's counted already as a thing. Okay, last question, and then we'll do at that.
What if you went with a shiksa and she had it?
So that's not even a Jewish baby.
Yeah,
so that baby doesn't have a share in the world to come.
Would you count it as a murder?
It's still considered murder. The question is non-Jews allowed to do it? But we should do a class on abortion once, maybe. But generally, for only Jews have a share in the world to come. Kol Yisrael yeshem chelek le'olam haba. Says the Mishnah. Do not Jews aborted babies? They should be. Miscarriage, yeah.
What happens if somebody was...
Oh, we'll speak about that. Okay, so let's see what the Zohar says something very... The Zohar, it's implied from the Zohar. It suggests, and this may be an bad interpretation of it, but that this period has to begin no later than 210 years in advance prior to the year 6000. So which means is by the year 5790, this process has to begin, or generally has to begin. And if you know, I gave what is it, like 12 years.
12 years.
What? 12 years. And
now you have my attention.
I generally, by the way, if you ever look at, I gave like 11 classes or something on Mashiach. I would never, I'm against, 40 years after.
It's a 40-year process.
When the process to begin, Mashiach process to begin. So I generally don't like to put dates on things. Because there's only things, and we spoke about it in one of the first classes, but this is something that's pretty much straight out, that it's, it's in the front, it's based on the Zohar. I'll give you sources afterwards.
Was that 11 years from now?
12 years from now.
57, 78.
Okay, 5778. Let's see, let's turn a little bit to more interesting ideas on scientifically, bringing it up. So there's two basic, I have to just mention, I should have mentioned this earlier. I've got happens to be, it's not for the men's class, it's really from the girls' class. That I've been, because, posting them online, I get numerous complaints. Can we have the questions at the end? It's very disruptive. So I should have mentioned it maybe in the beginning of this one. But first of all, I want to thank everybody online that did message me, because it's important. I need to know what the people feel like. For me it doesn't bother. What?
I'll say give me a shout out.
Yeah. I've had people give shout-outs before one of my classes. You guys remember that? When there was a kid just like walked up over here, and he's like, "Is this gonna be on the internet?" And he's like, "Ha!" It's like he go ahead and shout it out. I mean, I don't think I took it out. Whatever, it was very cute, it was a little kid. But I'm saying, it is. I guess it's. So let's leave the questions to the end, and then we'll have all the questions that we can answer. B'ezrat Hashem. Okay, so let us understand some ideas. I want to share with you something from Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan. Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan, this is a fantastic idea how he works. So there is two opinions regarding the reincarnation. So there's a majority opinion held by Saadia Gaon, the Rabbi, the Ramban, many Kabbalists also, that resurrection is a first step to the world to come, which means is that once a resurrection, that's it, you live forever after that. It's a physical plane where the body and the soul unite and they live forever. And that is the way it's supposed to be. That is one opinion. The Gemara in Sanhedrin, chapter page 91, says that Antoninus and Rabbi, Antoninus, they used to always, the Roman emperor, Roman governor, goes and always would speak with Rabbi Huda Nasi. So they went one time and he asked, and he says, Antoninus says to Rabbi, he says, the soul or the body, they can escape judgment. They could say, listen, they go to the body and go to God and say, listen, after I died, the soul says, why should I get punished? It wasn't my fault. Look at the body. The body's the one that's in. Because look, after I died, I'm soaring free over here. I'm like doing only like nothing bad. And then the body goes to God and be like, look, after the soul left me, I've been lying on the ground. I wasn't doing anything, so why should I get judged? So Rabbi answered him and says, and as a parable to a story that once there was a lame man and a blind man. And the lame man, he couldn't walk, and the blind man couldn't see. The king put them to guard his very precious garden. And the lame man goes and he tells the blind man, he says, I see beautiful, fruits over here. It looks so juicy. But he says, how am I supposed to get that? I can't walk and you can't see. You're not going to be able to get it. Question is, why would a king put a blind man to a garden or something? That's a question in itself. But what the blind man said, he says, listen, you put me on your shoulders. So wait, it wasn't a lame man. It was was it a lame man?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The blind. Yeah. So the blind man, he goes on the blind man's shoulders, and then he tells the blind man where to walk. And then he picks the tree and they all have a nice dinner together. So they come back, all of a sudden the king comes back and he says, where's all my delicious fruits? So the blind man says, could I do it? I can't even see. And the lame man, could I even do it? I can't even walk. He's a good watchman. Can't see and can't walk. So the king says, you think I could do that? He puts one on top of the other. He says, I can see how you guys did it. And then I'll judge you together like that. The same thing God. God says, you can't fool me. He puts us together and he judges us. The same idea, God will bring the body and the soul back together and there will be a final judgment after when Mashiach comes. Okay, so they'll be judged as a complete person. That's why the Baal Shem Tov says that every night, when the soul goes up, you give an accounting. You give a mini judgment is every single night when you go to sleep. That's why we say Kriyat Shema ala Mita. You're saying you're requesting forgiveness. You're also forgiving other people in the prayers. Says about Shem Tov, then there's every year there's a judgment. Rosh Hashanah, you get a judgment every single year, and then finally you're judged at the end of our lives. After 120, you get judged, and then finally after Mashiach comes, you get judged for all the generations. Because all the reincarnations that you were, how many times you were in this world, you get judged as a full picture. So now we have to understand, before we even go even further, what is the purpose? Before we even get what is the purpose of reincarnation, what is the purpose of God creating the physical world? You ever think about this? Like, God is spiritual, the reward is spiritual. What is the point of us being over here? Let's just skip the middle, cut out the middleman. What's a good businessman is, I don't need you anymore, I'll go to China myself. And, well, not necessarily because it's a lot of headache, but think of it, what is the whole purpose of this world? God is spiritual, ultimately we end up in spiritual, why do we need to be in the spiritual plane? And in the physical plane. So, to understand, first we have to look at what is the difference between spiritual and physical. And the answer is very simple, the difference is space. Physical space only exists in the physical world. In the spiritual world, there's no such thing as space. And what is this? What is the idea that you can't think of it this way? You cannot put polar opposites in the spiritual. You cannot put polar opposites in the spiritual world. It doesn't work together. Why? Because by definition, they're polar opposite. There's no okay, let's try this. It's like they're opposite and that's it. There's no trying to manipulate them together. On the other hand, in the physical world, you could put polar opposites together. And what's an example? A human body. We have a good inclination and we have an evil inclination. So we have both sides of this inclination. We're putting these two opposite forces inside a physical body. So the only way for us to combine these forces is only in the physical world. And the idea is you cannot put yourself close to God in the next world because it's two separate creations. But in this world, you're able to put these polar opposites together. And that is the reason that God created this physical world. And this is why angels are known as standing. Right? You look at Zechariah chapter 3 verse 7, angels are standing beings. What does that mean that they're standing? They cannot advance in themselves. They cannot become better. They cannot go. They are staying the way that they are because they're in the spiritual realm. They cannot move. We are known as walking beings. We're able to walk. We're able to go forward or backwards. And that is the reason why God created the world, because the only way that we would be able to gain anything in the spiritual world is only by being placed in the physical world, and then we'll be able to overcome certain things, certain tests, certain desires, and then raise the urges that we have into the spiritual realm. So now, we mentioned that there's two ideas on resurrection. So we said one. Number two is based off the Rambam, Maimonides, and Rabbi Yehuda Halevi, that the world to come, we said the world to come before is the Olam, the resurrection is going to be completely physical. Right? Remember that we said everything is going to be in the physical world, they live forever. There's another idea, which is it's going to be spiritual. The entire world back then, after the resurrection, is going to be a spiritual idea. But rather, what is the resurrection? That's like an in-between stage. It's like an in-between stage. So what happens is that after a person dies, it goes into the spiritual world. Then that is going to be interrupted with resurrection, and then they're going to return into the spiritual realm that they were before. So it's identical to Olam HaNeshamot, the world of souls. So the idea, according to this opinion, is that a person, let's say, lives, dies, goes to heaven, and then he gets resurrected, and then he goes back to the Olam, the heavenly area, and that stays on forever. So now,
So he goes to heaven in the physical body?
He goes to heaven. No, he'll be back he will die again. After he will die again and go to the spiritual, in the spiritual realm. Can I bother you for some liquid? Thank you. Yeah, thank you. So how it will happen? This is actually very interesting. How is it going to work? So I want to very briefly discuss the prophecy of Yechezkel. Guys, you have to silence your phones, please, in the class over here. Just kidding, it's mine for all those people online. Okay, so now the the way that it works in Yechezkel is that God came over to the prophet and he says, can they resurrect? God says, he says to God, he says, I don't know, you're God, you can do anything. So he says, start prophesying that they're going to resurrect it. And he started, whatever, you look over this, chapter 37 in Yechezkel, and they started resurrecting. So how did they resurrect? First the bones, and this is also reminds me of like that transformer thing, like everything like closed together. The bones started forming together. You picture this, it's like unbelievable. And then the tendons started forming, and then the muscles started forming, and then the skin started forming. So it was like imagine like a sci-fi, idea where the bones are just there. It was just bones, and all of a sudden it's like everything just comes created. And then they stood up, and then they were walking around like completely like they were on the valley. They weren't they were on top of the ground. It was a valley of bones. So the Gemara actually describes, there's a dispute if this actually happened or this was just a vision. So if you look at Bet Shammai says, how will the resurrection happen? Will it be just like, Yechezkel, like everything comes out on top? And he says, yeah, that's how it's going to be. Nowadays, when a baby is formed, so first it begins with skin and flesh, and the bones and the tendons, they grow within it. If you ever see the formation of the baby grows inside, the bones grow afterwards. And that's why the form of the baby comes out a little misshaped, and then they sort of get into the shape that they are meant to be. That is what Beis Shammai says. So Beis Shammai says that's how it's in this world now, but in the next time when the resurrection comes, it's going to go the other way around. First it's going to be the bones, and then everything is going to come on top of that. So sort of the reverse of the process that we're doing right now. But Hillel says, no. He says, just like man is formed in this world, that's how they're going to be formed in the time of resurrection again. So the first will be the skin and the formation, and then the bones and everything will grow within it. So, and this is the part you have to follow me a little bit. I know we're throwing some ideas around. We're going to put it all together very shortly. Where is the location of the Loews bone? So we said, some people say that it's in the back of where you put the tefillin. In the back where you put the tefillin. Others people say that it's in the coccyx bone, the lowest bone of the spine. But this time of the resurrection, the Chazal tell us that this bone is going to soften. It's going to soften, and then from this soft formation, it's going to go and it's going to form the entire body. Think of it like a liquid, like a milk. It explains it. So it'll be like a milk form, and then it will form into an entire body of similar to like the fetus, but not like a fetus, but it'll be like a full body. So now the idea behind this is we have to understand something between a miracle and a non-miracle. And this is how the Rambam defends his opinion that it's only going to be temporary. We know that it appears to be an unbroken rule. This is what Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan brings down, that a miracle is temporary. Every miracle, and that's why sometimes you look for evidence of a miracle. Miracles are only temporary. Miracles are not long-standing. So the Rambam says, you see, resurrection is a miracle. It's a miracle that it gets resurrected. And hence, if it gets resurrected, then therefore it's temporary, and therefore once a person gets resurrected, they die again, and then they enter the world of the Nishamot, the Olam HaNishmot, which is the Olam Haba, which is going to be in an entirely spiritual realm. However, there is still an opinion that says that the body would live forever. The body would actually physically live forever. The question is that if it's a miracle and it's only temporary, how could it live forever? So this is where Rabbi Kaplan, he brings, genius, how it's going to go. He says it may work like this, how he brings into the scientific, idea. He says that resurrection does not need to involve any change of laws of nature. And he explains like this. He's saying, so and if you look into DNA, or you look into any, genetic engineering, all these types of these areas in science, that every cell, every chromosome has enough information, enough genetic material needed to reconstruct the entire body. Right? So from one cell, you're able to reconstruct the entire body. You have a code in there, and this is how they would use the standard method of cloning nowadays, because they clone, let's say, for example, animals. So that's how they do it. They build it off the genetic breakdowns of the DNA. So what they do is they take the chromosome of an unfertilized ovum, and they place that in a cell that's to be cloned, and then that is placed in a womb, and then it goes and it produces a genetic copy of the chromosome donor, whoever whatever that was taken from. So now what we see over here is that you need a certain amount of genetic or chromosomes, genetic material, DNA, sufficient enough of information needed, and from that you can reconstruct an entire body. So I understand that from somebody who's alive. Somebody who's alive, if we are able to do cloning at a sort of point in time scientifically, then you're able to take someone who's alive now and do a carbon copy of that person, and even somebody who's dead. Someone who's dead recently, you're still able to extract that the DNA, and clone that person as well. But what about somebody who is, been dead for like thousands of years? You have nothing. What are you going to be able to find them? So there's also something very interesting, because it appears from the Zohar that all this is in a sterile condition. So it also, you could even say it that way. There's like the dew of resurrection. The dew of resurrection, think of it as a solution, like a nutrient solution to form the body. So, and by the way, if it wouldn't be Rabbi Kaplan, I wouldn't even say these ideas in it. But it's interesting how he formulates it. So let's say, so now we have people that were alive, and let's say they die or whatever, or people that recently died, and say we're able to genetically code them and clone them, then we're okay for those. What about people that are passed away centuries ago? So we know that Rizal was able to locate graves of which righteous person was buried. He would be able to walk it through. Ruach HaKodesh says, here's where this tzaddik is buried, that's where this tzaddik is buried. Just walk through the field and point out where people are buried. And we know that one of the requirements of resurrection is prophecy. So it could be this is where the prophetic prophecy can be used. And even furthermore, Rabbi Kaplan explains, he says you might not even need any information. You don't even need the body. Why not? He says because if you have the DNA, if you have the information is the information. If you could duplicate the information, you just need to know all the information. So if you add that information, you don't even need the body. You could duplicate it based on all the I don't know what the information, all the chromosomes, all the DNA. You could go and duplicate the entire body in itself. So the question is, how do we get this information? People have been dead thousands of years. And this, says Rabbi Kaplan, could be where prophecy comes into play. So it could be through prophetic vision, you'll be able to say, input into a computer data or whatever it is, what the original chromosome, what the original DNA was, and from that to reconstruct an entire body. Very interesting, idea. So, but at the same point in time, even if you construct a carbon copy of the body's not going to be, you need a soul. That you need 100%, it has to come down from God. Memories you can introduce. The soul you can introduce. That all has to come from God. But why? What is the reason of going to this idea? Because now we just proved that it's possible, technically, you could say that resurrection can happen in a natural way. Now, if a resurrection can happen in a natural way, even though it's miraculous as it seems, but it's through natural reasons, then it's not going to be subjected to the temporary idea of a miracle. Hence, if it's not subjected to the temporary idea of a miracle, it'll be able to actually last forever. And this is how he explains the opinion, according to the opinion that the majority that says that the resurrection will be a physical body and it's going to last forever. Okay. Let's close a few close ends, and we'll finish with something very nice for the Chatan and Kala. What happens if a person dies? If let's say a person is alive, they're married to their wife, and comes Mashiach, the resurrection, they both die and they come back to life. Do they need to redo the Kiddushin? Do they have to get remarried again, or is it sufficient that they were married before? It's like such a short period of time and it counts. And the answer is they don't. The Kiddushin remains. That it remains. If they die and they get immediately resurrected, so you guys know you're good already. That's it. If it happens, you don't have to go through all that stuff again. But however, if there is a mass resurrection of the dead that occurs, they will need new Kiddushin. Now, what happens? What happens if, let's say, somebody gets cremated? I think Moshe was asking that. What about somebody that gets cremated or burnt? So there's people that cremate themselves, which obviously from a lack of Jewish understanding don't know why, and which will explain why you're not supposed to get cremated. No, not necessarily. And there are people that get burnt. People in the Holocaust, unfortunately, right? And they got cremated. Well, technically, in the concentration camps. So, first of all, we have to realize why we can't get cremated. Number one is there's a mitzvah to get buried. There is an actual mitzvah to be buried. Number two, it's disrespect to the body. We hold the body at a very, very high respect. And in fact, if God forbid you ever see a car accident where a Jewish person passes away, they even take the blood and they bury the blood with it. If there's unfortunately body parts, they bury everything together. They even come and they scoop up blood from the floor and also to put it in a bag, and it gets buried together with the person, or it gets buried right on top of the coffin. So it's a disrespect to the body. But also there is a special atonement for being buried. There is the decomposition of the body serves as an atonement for the soul. And if it doesn't get that, the soul doesn't get its full atonement. So, however, it's still possible, and for somebody who got cremated, especially talking about people in the Holocaust, people that wasn't even beyond their abilities to get resurrected as well. There's interesting what happened after the resurrection. Will there be eating? Will there be procreating? So I saw two conflicting opinions. Some say that there will be, just like it was now, and some say no, that it will not be. Ben Ish Chai also writes that a person has to go and a person has to also honor his parents, because now, if you think about it, he died. Now he came back to life by God, or if you want to say through the science, however it was that he was brought back to life. Does he still have to do kibbut avim, to that? And the Ben Ish Chai says, yeah, he still needs to. And finally, I want to finish off with an idea regarding non-Jews. What will non-Jews do in the time of Mashiach after the resurrection? So first of all, the Gemara in Sanhedrin, page 91b, says that first of all, death will cease from Israel. So this, how to understand it, basically the soul or the body will live on forever. But the non-Jews, the Gentiles, they will live long, but not eternal lives. So the Koma asks the question, but what is the non-Jews going to, what's their place in the next, in the time after the resurrection? And it says they will be the ones who serve the people that serve Hashem. But another interesting idea is, do the non-Jews get resurrected? And this is very hard to find. Always very difficult to find, halachot or things in regards to non-Jews, because in general, the current books that we have, especially the more modern books, are dealing with the Jewish people, because this is what we spread out Torah. But so I saw that there's actually an opinion that we know that righteous non-Jews, do have a share in the world to come, and that righteous Gentile can come back. There's actually an opinion that says that all the Gentiles are going to be resurrected, but the wicked ones are going to be just be resurrected to show their downfall, the entire whatever it is that they worked for, and the righteous will be enjoying of the benefit.